my name is Ella, and for today's video I have something to tell you about my path. Now, you may have noticed that recently I've been doing a lot more videos about folk magic and folklore and things like that, and less about Wicca. So I've gotten a few questions asking me, am I still a Wiccan? And honestly, the answer is no. All right, I think we're gonna have to rewind a little bit. So let's start at the beginning. A little bit of backstory. Now, I grew up as a Wiccan. Since I'm 11 years old, I was a Wiccan. And last year, maybe a bit longer than a year now, I stumbled upon an article about the Germanic goddess Holle, and I started crying because I realized that, oh my gosh, that presence has been there since I started my practice, since I'm 11 years old. I just never knew a name or anything like that. I always just referred to it as the goddess, but that hit me so hard. And then I really was like, oh my gosh, you know, I want to get deeper into this. This feels so right. And I also was living in New Zealand at the time, which is where I was born. And I really realized how much I kind of miss parts of my German culture. So if you don't know, I am German, or at least half German. My mom is German, my mom's side of the family is German. And then I was born in New Zealand. My dad is a Kiwi, and his side of the family is English/Scottish. And so, but I grew up with my mom, and therefore I grew up German. It's only at school that I would speak English, and of course when I talked to my dad or visited my dad in New Zealand. So when I was living in New Zealand, I was really kind of missing a lot of the German sort of things, like the food and like the celebrations and just things like that, I suppose. And so that kind of really got me started on kind of reconnecting more with it. It's funny because I kind of grew up with a bit of shame, to be very honest with you, about being German, because we would always move to different countries because my stepdad's in the military, and so people would always kind of mock me for being German. And so I started to just be like, I'm a Kiwi, I'm from New Zealand, and really kind of put away that Germanness. And so last year when I read that article, it kind of was just like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling such a connection to this. Maybe it's time for me to accept that part of myself, that huge part of myself. And obviously there comes a lot with that, considering the history, right? I moved away from Wicca, and in general, I've noticed that perhaps I was not as Wiccan as I thought I was, just simply by the fact that my love for Wicca came mostly for the nature worship and the connection to different Celtic pagan groups of people, right? Which I have always kind of felt a connection with as well, my dad's side of the family and stuff. And I just have always just enjoyed that part. I never was really into the more ceremonial aspect of it, as much at least, and I just kind of realized that for the past 4 years, I think my path has just really shifted more and more into folk magic. Now, then when folk magic as a term became popular, I was like, this is like exactly what I've been practicing and what I really, really enjoy. And so I think it was kind of a natural evolution. But yeah, so for anyone asking, am I still a Wiccan? The answer is no. However, and whilst I do want to kind of pick apart my practice and reassess it, and kind of, it's going to definitely look very different, I would say, in 5 years' time than it does right now. But I think there's an element of Wicca is always going to have a very special place in my heart, and I think I would dare say perhaps even have an effect on me forever, just because of how long I've practiced or was under the assumption of practicing it, or I would say practice it, because at that point I self-identified as a Wiccan, right? And so I've always got a love for it. Now, I actually wanted to talk about how my practice looks now with my newfound German Folkmagick path. And yeah, I hope you guys find something that you resonate with in this video. So how does my practice actually look like? Honestly, there's a lot of reading folklore and fairy tales, seeing as I only recently, the last year or so, kind of reconnected with that. I'm still very much in the early stages of this, and I'm still doing a lot of research, a lot of, reconnecting. There's a lot of ancestor veneration involved. My deities that I work with, they are Germanic pagan. I'm trying to connect more with land spirits and local spirits of where I live right now, which is in Latvia. So it's not quite German or Germanic, but home spirits and things like that. And the house spirits, I do think, of course, will be localized, but they will also be my house spirits. So, I think a large part of it is also sitting by the altar, journaling, doing works of, divination kind of practice, connecting with, as I just said, my ancestors, my deities, and things like that. That can look like presenting an offering. Now, I like to keep my offerings somewhat traditional. I like to go with milk and honey because that is a very traditional offering that you would have seen in pagan days of Europe. I also like to do beer, which seems like a stigma, but I feel like I enjoy cherry beer and honey beer, which is technically more mead or med, but I feel like they enjoy it too. I have one here as we speak. Notice it always lasts a lot longer on the altar than if I just have it sitting on like the kitchen counter or something, which has happened, where I just leave it in the kitchen and then it's spoiled already after a day or two and you see like mold growing on it, which is not very nice. But if it's on my altar, I've noticed it can last like 2-3 days before I replace it. But yeah, so that's more so for my ancestors. As for land spirits, I really like to get into the local lore. My fiance is a Latvian pagan, and so he, just having been born, raised, and always lived here in Latvia, he does share some really, really fascinating sort of things. I am trying to get more into kind of like herbalism and the folklore behind certain plants, just reading again a lot, and also of course spending time in nature. I think if you are practicing paganism and witchcraft, this is my personal opinion, it might not apply to everyone, but I really see a huge importance in being outside in nature and spending time with nature and just having your bare feet on the ground. I just imagine that being incredibly important to me and to many people. And again, I feel like it's also something that connects me to my ancestors and to the gods and everything. So something that I just kind of want to do a lot more is just do a lot of more meditation and just things that are healing to my soul, healing to just nature around me and connect with nature. I'm very pleased to announce that this video actually is sponsored by Aura. I've been getting very overwhelmed and dealing with imposter syndrome and burnout, and I'm just feeling like Aura is really helping me through that. Aura is a new mindfulness and sleep app that won the Best of Apple award and is used by over 7 million people. It's an all-in-one app for your well-being and sleep and has thousands of meditations, stories, and so much more like CBT, life coaching, breathwork, and spirituality. Aura's content is created by hundreds of expert coaches and therapists around the world. I've started to use it for my meditations. I love their nature sounds and music in the background of when I'm doing spell work, and their guided meditations have excellent journaling prompts as well. There's so much variety in personalization, like white noise and even kitchen noise for the background makes my ADHD brain very happy. It's like a Spotify for your mind and soul. It's the only app that had guides exactly for burnout and lack of confidence and just the things I needed. Get started for completely free on Aura's website using my special link in the description. The first 500 people get the free trial and exclusive 25% off. That's for the first 500 people only. So yeah, I feel like that part of connecting with my ancestors obviously also we need to address the obvious and the elephant in the room. My ancestors were German and English and Scottish, but they were also German, and seeing as I'm focusing more on my German path right now, I do at some point want to connect with my dad's side of the family as well, but I kind of was like, I kind of want to do the German side now, and then once I'm really comfortable with that, I can move and not move, but I can start researching about the English and the Scottish. I just don't want to confuse the two when I'm reading material, so that's kind of what I'm doing. But obviously it's important to acknowledge that my ancestors, being German, were not pure. Most ancestors around the world were not pure. But obviously, you know, being German, you definitely have that as your history. And so it's important to acknowledge that. It's important to accept that and work through that. That can look different for different people. I have come to terms with the fact that my ancestors were likely not always the best and kindest people. And I've accepted that because that's part of working through that, in my opinion. But I also, of course, am doing my best to leave this world a better place than when I got here. So I think that's really, really important. And I want to do my part in making the world a better place. So it's just a lot of things that you need to work through. There's also going to be an element of family beliefs and possibly even traditions where you kind of need to say, where does that actually come from? Is this a healthy tradition, or is it maybe time to put that tradition in the past and create a new tradition? I really like to ask my family members a lot of stories. I've got a lot of pictures now that they also gave me, so I actually have that picture there. That is my great-great-great-great-grandmother. It's pretty incredible that we have family photos of that far back. And I've also been trying to just work out the names, the birth dates, the locations and all that stuff. And again, we're very lucky because my Oma grew up near Munich, and so her entire family grew up near Munich. And so their family graves are all there, and I've visited those. They're always accessible to me. Okay, I live in Latvia right now, but they're still only, you know, like a plane ride away, and the plane ride is only like 1.5 hours, you know, and it's somewhat affordable, not necessarily all the time. But, you know, whenever we do any kind of family reunions or I visit my family, I'm able to really kind of connect with a lot of those things, with our history, and learn from our history. So I've started to incorporate a lot of traditional German things more into my practice. Something that I missed in New Zealand a lot was food. I really grew up with all of that Bavarian food. As a matter of fact, my Oma and my great aunt grew up in a tavern. So their family used to own like a tavern, and they had a lot of food. And so food is a very big and important part for me to reconnect with my family. And so food is just really, really important to me, and that's kind of one of the ways that I want to honor my ancestors. I try not to throw any food away, and I try to really respect the food that we have. I try to make family recipes, and I really enjoy them. I really like them. They're very, very delicious to me, and my fiance likes them too, so it's a win-win. So food has been like a really, really interesting and important thing for me. I also like to, when I do make these meals, think of my ancestors and invite them to enjoy the meals through me. Another thing is, of course, communication. How that looks like. So for me, my communication looks either through means of divination like tarot, or dreams, or signs. Signs can be music or other little things that are associated, that I know are associated with my family. There's a specific song that is very specifically associated with my great-grandmother. And my Oma would always say when she hears that song, and it's not a very common song, then she knows her mother is around her. And recently, that song randomly popped into my head too. So I feel like actually establishing that connection, and I'm really like appreciative of that. And then a lot of it is also learning, as I mentioned, folklore, folk tales, fairy tales. Now Germany has a lot of fairy tales. Really loving those. And I really just enjoy them. I've recently bought 2 books about Bavarian folk tales that I'm still in the process of reading, so I'm not gonna mention them just yet. You may have seen them on my Instagram stories. I just don't want to recommend them yet without having read them fully yet. But obviously the Brother Grimm stories are a great starting point as well, and that's also where you see Frau Holle. So Goddess Holle is of course very important to me, and also Wodan. So those are the 2 deities that I worship. That's what I have on my altar as representations, the statues. So Frau Holle and Wodan, or you might know him as Odin, but the German name is Wodan. And yeah, so that's really how that looks for me, and I'm really enjoying this path. I feel like your path will likely shift and change as you grow older, and I can definitely tell that I had a major shift in the recent years, and I feel like I'm finally coming home. But yeah, so I hope this video was perhaps interesting. Perhaps you found something in this video that inspired you yourself. And thank you so much for watching. And of course, if you want to connect with me and my content more, I will have my Instagram as well as my Patreon linked below. My Patreon obviously is where I will share behind the scenes videos or extra videos, as well as content on my German folk path. And just other little things here and there as well. So with that being said, once again, thank you so much. Blessed be, and bye. See you next time.